Now, Americans get very upset when they hear someone in Iran chanting death to America, or they don't understand why do Iranians dislike the United States and its foreign policy. What they don't tell you, the United States toppled the democratically elected prime minister of Iran in 1953, and they did that not just with the CIA but with the help of MI6. CIA admits to it. You can go and see it on their website even, but MI6 still won't admit to it, but we know it's true. And they did this for several reasons, because for the UK, what is today British Petroleum used to be called the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, and then I think they renamed it Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and then it was renamed to BP, right? It's kind of like Chiquita Bananas. They did a coup in Guatemala because of Chiquita Bananas. They had to rename it from United Fruit Corps to Chiquita. The UK found oil in Iran, and Winston Churchill decided as a result to switch the Royal Navy, because he was head of the Admiralty at the time, from coal, so coal-powered engines, steam-powered engines, over to fuel, right? And the UK would steal so much oil, they would cook the books, you know? They would make Iranians pay in resources in oil, but then they would make them pay a tax on top of that, and then they would cook the books and not even show them. Massive, massive racket. Empires steal the best. They're so good at stealing. When Mossadegh came along and he was the prime minister, he nationalized the oil. Okay, and at the time, you have to remember, Abadan was the largest oil refinery on the planet, and that was in Iran. So this was unconscionable. Like, how dare you? And they were even contemplating torpedoing, literally blowing up that refinery. That's what the British government was thinking about doing at the time. They pulled all the British workers, and they tried to punish the Iranians for nationalizing their own resources. So they came up with the idea of a coup, and they toppled Mossadegh. And who did they install? The Shah. Okay, so the Shah in Iran, he was installed by the CIA and by MI6 because he allowed the UK to steal oil, and the Americans turned Iran into a client state, kind of like what Saudi Arabia is today. So it's like the police for the region. They're going to have all our American jets and American guns, and you know, they'll let us put bases there, and that's what it was. It was a client state. So both countries benefited from that coup. Iranians didn't benefit a fucking thing. As a matter of fact, the CIA went and trained the secret police, the Savak, notorious for torturing people. You know, the CIA has done this in numerous countries. They helped put the Shah in place. They destroyed Iran's democratic government, and then they trained the secret police in torture in order to keep Iranians in line. I think that is the reason, as a matter of fact, I know it's the reason that Iranians dislike the United States, right? That is the reason. It's nothing to do with how free the United States is. They're not jealous of the United States. They just don't like being oppressed or interfered with or, you know, controlled and having their resources and their money and wealth stolen from them. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to want, isn't it? So that is the real reason. And that's how empires rely on ignorance. Because you ask an average Joe in America or someone in Europe, you know, off the street, you ask them about this, they have no fucking clue. None. Even people who appear educated, who appear to have their heads screwed on straight and who dabble or engage or, you know, work in politics and journalism, most of them have no clue about this. And it's basic history, right? They won't tell you this. They have no clue. It's just, yeah, it's the mullahs and the hijab and, you know, people are so oppressed, Muslim, this and that. And then your proxies, nuclear weapons, and yeah, let's bomb them. They're all reading from a script. It's so boring. It's so cheap and tacky, completely intellectually barren, no context, no understanding of the people they're dealing with, the people they're trying to murder, these tens of millions of people that they're trying to oppress again for a second, third time. Yeah. And again, Iran actually in World War II was invaded by the Allies. That's something else that you should know, right? So I think they're rightfully sick of having Western armies, governments, generals, spies tell them and dictate to them how to run their country. I think that really strikes at the core of the issue. They just don't want to be attacked. Period. That's it. And also they have compassion for the Palestinians. That is also a crime. Apparently in the West it is a crime. But that is really their concern for their neighbors, which again, the United States thinks that for its security it has the right to bomb people on the other side of the planet. Israelis think that for their security they can assassinate people across the planet and leech money off the West. But Iran can't defend its neighbors? How does that make any sense? Why can't it defend them or help them? That's not a security concern. To see a vacuum, a political and security vacuum in Iraq and then in Syria, that's a security concern for everyone. How many laws have been passed in the West, in Europe and America to restrict freedoms because of, you know, the boogeyman Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which the West created? But Iran, which is literally on the border with Iraq, where Al-Qaeda is thriving thanks to America, where ISIS is thriving thanks to America, they can't do anything. They shouldn't do anything. What kind of logic is that? Now they're trying to rehabilitate the Shah. All these Western channels in the UK and the US, they're bringing on his son. Has he ever been to Iran? Because he's in exile, right? I'm not doubting that he's Iranian. He certainly is. But you understand my point. He hasn't really done anything for them. As a matter of fact, I think people have really nasty memories about his father being in power. So So my point is just that they're trying to bring him on this, all these Western news channels, and Trump is also trying to suggest that, they want to put him in power. You do realize that this guy's a monarch, yeah? His father was a king. There's no democracy under the Shah. On the contrary, there's lots of oppression and there's lots of exploitation by the West. But there's no democracy. It's not a parliamentary monarchy like in the UK. And even then, do we really have a democracy in the UK? No. But there's not even an illusion or a semblance of having something like a parliamentary monarchy. It's a straight up monarchy. It's just a king. They talk about how undemocratic Iran is and how they need to be freed, with Western bombs. They need to be liberated of their lives, right? And replace their system of government with a monarchy. That's going to make them more free. I mean, just the level of stupidity, and I don't know if it's stupidity. It's more like it's just more like vindictive, cunning, malicious, gaslighting. I think it's really what it comes down to. But that's what we're dealing with. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. And I think it's no wonder that after what Israel and the United States have done, you're seeing all these Iranians, even some people outside the country, even some people who are exiled, or, people who are expats or people who are opposition, not all of them, but a good amount, a reasonable amount, enough that it's notable, currently and suddenly switching to this sense of national unity, where they're like, well, screw you. No, we don't want American bombs or Israeli bombs on Iranian soil, actually, even if we don't like our government. And you're not going to use that as an excuse to come and overthrow or come and, tell us how to live and how to run our country and run our resources and how to simply exist. So it's just, once again, it goes to show you it's never been about nuclear missile. The whole point behind leaving the nuclear deal was about capping and destroying their economy so they can't build ballistic missiles in response to Israel and America. That's really what the goal was about. It wasn't about nuclear non-proliferation or a bomb. They knew Iran doesn't want to build one. They just wanted to make it defenseless. That's really the idea. It's to make it a defenseless country with no defense industry, no conventional weapons, no ballistic missiles, no regional support for other people that are also occupied by the United States and Israel. Cripple the region so it's easier to manage, easier to rob, easier to steal from, easier to control. That's what it comes down to.